100 years.
It is a very, very long time. I mean, in this period, technology has changed, empires have risen and fallen, and well, the global population has exploded. But the one thing that has remained constant in this period is that men have always been interested in styling their hair, and I thought today, whilst adding in a sprinkle of history, we could break down how to style the last 100 years of hair.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please take your seats at this time as the program will begin momentarily. Thank you.
First things first, the Roaring Twenties. A decade marked by huge optimism, economic growth, electricity became widespread, and they also, well, men wore a lot of hats. Therefore, to make hat wearing as convenient as possible, men opted for slicked hairstyles, and the product they used to do this is called Brilliantine. I'd be amazed if you've heard of it before, but it is in effect fragranced oil. And the hairstyle of choice was pretty much just a slicked middle part, and well, they kind of got their hair cut specifically to be able to do this. Once you kind of got it through the hair, and trust me, you're gonna have to use a lot of this stuff because at the end of the day, it is just oil. You then want to slick it to the scalp as tightly as possible. And then you also want to take a center part. Now, the best way to take a center part is to take a comb, go up through the middle of your nose, up through your scalp, like so, and then part it. Once you've taken that middle part, comb to the side, and then comb backwards, and that will sort of create that very nice slicked middle part. And there you have it, the world famous helmet head hairstyle, where not only will you have the greasiest hands in the entire world, you'll also be able to put your hat on your head, wear it around for as long as you like, take it off, and your hair won't even move. The 1930s was an era of hardship, mass unemployment and poverty. It was also a fantastic era for the side part and wavy hair. Now, first things first, you want to apply a hair tonic to the hair. I'm actually using a hair water, which is kind of like a blend of the middle, and this one is from Japan. And then once the hair is soaking wet, you then want to slick it all the way back. Then to create a side part, you want to take the end of your rat tail comb, place it about halfway between your eyebrow, and push up into the head and part like so. Using some hairspray, I know they didn't technically have it in this era, but this will just sort of keep that side part locked in. Then at this point you can either leave it like so, or if you also want to kind of get that like Gatsby wave, you can take some hair clamps like this and then position them in your head like so. Now at this point you could just leave it to air dry, or alternatively you could get a hairdryer. And if you do decide to go for the hairdryer route, I would definitely suggest getting one that has a diffuser on the end. I have lost my diffuser, so I'm just going to use my hand, and basically what this does is it stops like the hairdryer just blowing the hair everywhere. Once the hair is dry, you then want to take out the wave clips. Once again, you just want to spray down with some hairspray. And then, although it might seem kind of counterproductive, you then want to take a brush and then sort of brush these out like so. Then once you've reached this point, obviously your hair should now have a very nice, natural looking soft wave. And if you like, you know, just to sort of create a nice little curl and a bit of a eccentricity, especially if your hair is slightly longer than mine, you can kind of take the hair at the end and just sort of bring it round into kind of like a little, is it like a motif or like a curl? I don't know what it's called, but like this. And well, there you have it. Your very own Marcel wave, Great Gatsby, whatever you want to call it, side part. And in my opinion, I think it looks pretty good.
This country is at war with Germany.
The 1940s, war, and a lot of it. Now, in terms of hair, well, mid parts were now completely out of the option because that was now seen to be a feminine hairstyle. Hair now had more height, and well, the side part was still incredibly popular. Another major change was that the electric clipper now became available at home, and buzz cuts became increasingly popular, as did many other military hairstyles for reasons that you have just heard. And one of the main changes is that not only did people start to use pomade and stronger holding products, Well, having hairlines in your hair was seen as completely unfashionable, and people started to use a much thicker bristle comb. Now, the side part is obviously the same as the 1930s, and if you are going from the 1930s to the 1940s, the first thing you want to do is go back to having wet hair, and again, use some hair tonic or hair water to do this. Once your hair is damp, you then want to take a little bit of pomade. You only want to apply a little bit, as again, they were only really after natural looking hairstyles. And then you want to sort of run it through your wet hair. And just to sort of bring it all together, you want to take your bristle comb and bring it all together like so, making sure that when you're combing, you comb up, because again, you want to create a little bit of lift. So you're not combing back, you're combing up and back, if that makes sense. And then in terms of drying, again, if you can't be asked to wait for it to air dry, just apply a little bit of hairspray and then take your hair dryer and kind of dry as you would dry your hair with the diffuser. And there you have it. What is in effect a very slick, very stylish side part that wouldn't look out of place at any job across the country. Like, it's one of my favorite from the entire collections. Like, it looks so, so good. And I do occasionally actually rock this.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock.
So the 1950s was marked by more war without direct fighting, the beginning of the space race, DNA being discovered, and Queen Elizabeth coming to the throne. And on top of that, the variety in men's hairstyles exploded.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock,
I mean,
8
at this
o'clock,
point,
rock.
anything you could possibly think of doing with your hair, you could do. However, possibly most famous of all were the greasers. And I want to make it pretty clear, like, these were not socially acceptable hairstyles, but Hollywood made it popular. So yeah, today we're gonna do a greaser hairstyle. To begin with, you want to take a fair chunk of pomade, which you then want to rub through your hands and heat up, because this will make application of it a hell of a lot easier. You then want to rub it through dry hair. The thing that's worth noting is that this is one of the few hairstyles where the back of the hair is also as important as the front of the hair. Once you're about 4 inches deep in pomade, you then want to take a comb. I suggest taking a wide tooth comb, because anything smaller than this and you will literally rip your hair out. And then you want to kind of work the product through your hair, like so. At this point, if you are finding it quite difficult with the product, I would suggest maybe applying like 1 or 2 sprays of water. Well, once you've run it through your hair once and it's no longer tearing out, you then want to take a thicker brush or a thicker comb, and again, sort of work through it. Then once you've run it through your hair with a thicker comb, you then want to take a thinner comb and comb it back like so, which, as you can tell, is lots of fun. Then once you've combed it back and you look a little bit like a Voldemort, you then want to do the back, which is also known as the duck's arse. To do this, you just kind of want to comb into the center, like so. You then want to move on to the top, and to do this, you want to kind of create 2 separate kind of side parts, although they're not done in the same way as before. And then you want to lift the hair up, like so. And this is going to create your elephant's trunk. Now, as you start to do this, it should start to form some sort of weird Mohican. And as it kind of starts to do this, basically what you want to do is you want to create like kind of like a tunnel. So what you want to do is you want to like sort of push one side of the hair kind of under the other. From here, you then want to incorporate the middle of the tunnel with the walls. And to do this, you kind of slowly pick more hair from the center, whilst also kind of brushing and meshing the walls together. And as you start to sort of move to the front, you kind of want to pick the comb up and flicking it forward, because this bit you want to kind of bring out a little bit, hence the name kind of elephant's trunk. And then once you kind of blended the sides into the front, and a great way of doing this is also just sort of twisting the hair forward with your fingers like so, and this will hopefully also create that sort of natural tunnel through the middle. You then want to take your comb and blend the sides into the top. And this creates that sort of really, really nice winged hair look. But yeah, there you have it, your very own greaser's elephant trunk. I mean, I'll be honest, this is definitely not my strong point out of all the hairstyles. And I would definitely recommend going and finding another hair tutorial if this is something that you desperately really want to try, because like they might be able to go into slightly more depth. Also, my hair is not really fully long enough to fully blend the top. And as you can see, the elephant trunk doesn't really like protrude that far off my head, so it could definitely do with being a little bit longer. But again, a really, really cool hairstyle from a really, really cool era in terms of men expressing themselves, and for that, it's a big thumbs up. The 1960s, an era of cultural, social revelation, and specifically an era of the Beatles.
Do you think Beatlemania will last?
As long as you all keep coming.
Hair became longer and shaggier, sideburns grew, and well, the mod top had its moment. Now, in terms of the mod top, it's super easy to do. Take a brush, take a paddle brush, whatever you want to use, and sort of comb your hair down like so. You want your hair to be like very shampooed. You want it to be almost kind of fluffy and soft. And then from here, you can either just leave it and maybe add a little bit of Brill cream to sort of run through your hair, which was a hugely popular product at this point. Or if you want to kind of create that infamous bangs look, you want to get yourself some hair straighteners. These specific ones are the GHD Mini, which are kind of really good for men's hair because they're small and allow you to kind of get right into the root. Whereas if you take like the thick ones, like it's a bit more tricky. And then from here, I'm kind of nervous because I can't really see what I'm doing, but you want to take sections of your hair right about around the root is, and then just sort of curl it towards your scalp like so. Obviously you want to work your way right around the fringe, making sure to only focus on the front bits. At this point, you can then run a little bit of Brill cream through your hair, if you so please. Obviously not too much, otherwise your hair will go super greasy. But just to sort of freshen it up and give it a nice little shine. The 1970s, a turbulent and transformative decade. Hippies came to the fore, the Beatles ended, Star Wars arrived, the first computer chip was developed, and the Vietnam War happened. However, the influence of the Beatles, even though they separated in the early 70s, still remained strong, and well, they kind of just came back with the same hairstyle, but with kind of a side part. Anyhow, to do this, you just want to, again, have shampooed hair, which you then want to dampen slightly. Once your hair is damp, you then want to take a rat tail comb and create a side part, just as all the other hairstyles that have side part. And then once you've created the side part, you just want to kind of comb your hair out, like so, and kind of fluff it up a little bit. From here, you then want to kind of just, sort of fluff the sides up and, sort of flick it about to kind of make it very loose. And then at this point, if you want to throw a little bit of product through your hair just to kind of give it an extra bit of hold, I guess you can. But in my opinion, this era is all about being natural and in touch with your environment. So yeah, I'm not going to add a product to this one. (1980s), the era of the face. David Bowie, Billy Idol, David Hasselhoff, Princess Diana got married, and Margaret Thatcher sent the entirety of the UK to war. In the 1980s, hairstyles became statements of interest, and with fashion being pushed to the extremes, hair wasn't particularly far behind either. The most famous and iconic by far is the 1980s slickback. It was a hairstyle that signaled money, calculation, and intent, and was a hairstyle that businessmen used to transition from the boardroom to the club. Now, in terms of how you want to do this hairstyle, it's fairly simple. You can either use water or mousse. I'll be using mousse because that helps you create like extra volume, which was very popular during this era. And then from here, once you've kind of rubbed it all in and you've pushed it back a little bit, you want to take a round-headed brush and a hairdryer, and then you want to sort of push the round-headed brush towards your head to sort of give your hair that sort of lift up like so. And then with the hairdryer, you then want to dry it. Those are the direction that you want to do it. You could just go straight back. I tend to find to like follow your shape of the head works best, which will also create sort of a very nice natural side part depending on which side you use the brush. I also find at this point it's quite nice to bring that side part back in if it's sort of blended out whilst combing. So we're just going to accentuate that as well whilst sort of rubbing the pomade through the hair.
Let's rock this joint!
The 1990s, the Cold War ended, hip hop arrived, Harry Potter was here, the celebrity was everywhere, and as was the Hollywood heartthrob.
He's good looking, he's popular, girls throw themselves at him.
It's an era defined by a drive for individualism. Highlights were big, as were frosted tips, the bowl cut, arrived on the scene, and most importantly, curtains were everywhere. Now, the specific genre of curtains that I feel like defined the decade was effectively the heartthrob. This is a hairstyle worn by Brad Pitt and Leonardo Dicaprio and basically every other famous actor in the 90s. And to begin with, once again, we're gonna start with some mousse. The thing that kind of defines this particular hairstyle is the diagonal side part. And to do this, you wanna start roughly at the edge of your eyebrow, like here, and then kind of just move the end of the rat tail comb towards the center of your head. You then wanna take a hairband, like so, and you apply it just so that it sits beyond where your hair kind of starts. And then you dry it into place so it kind of locks, at least the front bit. Now, once the front of it has locked in a little bit, you then want to start peeling the back bits of your hair kind of over the front of the hairband. And also when you're pulling it forward, you want to make sure that on either sides of the part, you want to pull it towards kind of your nose. So on this side, you pull it this way, and this side, you pull it this way. And then once you've kind of pulled the front bits forward, you then want to take your hairdryer again and lock it fully in place this time. Once it's dried, you can then take your hairband out. You then want to kind of like pinch the hair forward so that it sits on your forehead, like so. Be gentle while doing this, and also make sure you're pinching like the strands of hair together. This will sort of keep them together and create that sort of fork, floppy look that, I don't know, I feel like is so synonymous with these actors. There we have it, the 1990s heartthrob. I'm gonna be so honest, there is definitely a better, more efficient way of doing this. My hair is by no means long enough for it either, but I think it kind of looks reminiscent of, and you know, to be honest, I do feel like a lot of the hair in the 90s did look quite crispy, so I don't feel like I'm a million miles off either.
1, 2, 3.
The 2000s, a new millennia, a somewhat entirely forgettable era, and well, it's fair to say the fashion was certainly somewhat interesting. In terms of hair, buzz cuts exploded all over Hollywood, and gel became incredibly popular, and as did spiked hair. And well, in terms of spiked hair, it was kind of just a one-stop shop, really. Pretty much, you just want to take a fair amount of gel, rub it in your hands, and then run it through your hair. Now, in terms of the variety of spikes, there were 2 a penny. I mean, you've got the faux hawk, you have like Liberty spikes, you have just straight up spikes. And in this case, we're just gonna go for like pure spiky. And to do this, basically, you wanna grab the hair with the comb and then pull out. So like, kind of like a that scooping motion. With the aim in mind, really, to kind of just try and make the hair as wild as possible. Once it's then kind of all spiked up, I feel like you can kind of go in with your fingers and just kind of like create some strands so that it's not all just sort of like vroom. Obviously making sure when doing the fringe that you kind of drag the fringe forward too, because otherwise you're just gonna end up with a straight wall. And then to finish it up, we're gonna kind of try and just like pat it down a little bit, just because I have quite long hair. And there you have it, 2000 spiked hair. And I gotta say, I'm glad that this era's passed. 2010, Justin Bieber, Supreme, and skinny jeans. Is there anything else I really need to say? Now, if for whatever reason you do want to do the Justin Bieber hair, I don't know, maybe you've lost a bet, it's very easy. You just need slightly damp hair, a paddle brush or just a general brush, and a hairdryer. And pretty much what you want to do is kind of, as you dry it, you want to just brush your hair to one side. And then once your hair is dry, you could do the hair flick. Well, what can I say? A hype beast brought back from the brink of death. I am now an extinct species. And finally, 2020, the era where everyone's social media exposure went through the roof. We had COVID and were locked inside for 2 years. And we might all get replaced by robots. In terms of hair, what's kind of not been on trend? I mean, we've had the buzz cut, the Edgar, the warrior cut, the fluffy fringe. However, I feel like the thing that is most synonymous with this era is texturized hair. Now, I know in terms of texturized hair, you guys will all be familiar with texturizing powders, sea salt, and clay. And you know, they're all good at creating texture. But over the last 3 years, I have come up with something that is, in my opinion, far, far superior, and that is Mont texturizing tool. This will create texture that lasts all day, looks natural, washes out easily, and doesn't make your hair dry or greasy, unlike many of those other products that I've just suggested. It's super simple. You basically apply a dash of it into your hand like so, rub it between your hands, apply it to your hair. And within 20 seconds, you will have natural looking texture that will literally last you all day. I have quite literally poured my heart into this over the last 35 months. This is one of only 2 samples that we currently have. And I really hope that you guys will give this a try if you get the opportunity, because once you've used it once, you will never want to use any of those products ever again. And I really mean that. That is 100 years of hair. This is 3 years of my life. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.